Like, for example, in the last cycle in 24, I wanted to go door knock in Minneapolis, right in the inner city. I can only get 4 people, me and 3 other people, to go into to lit drop. We weren't even door knocking, we were just lit dropping, and Republicans would say to me, "Oh, I'm not going there." "Why not?" "Oh, I'm afraid it's not safe." "What do you mean
Yeah.
it's not safe? It's 12 o'clock in the afternoon." "No, I'm not doing it." So what I'm saying to you, Richard, is that the Republican Party of Minnesota, going back 30, 40 years, has absolutely abandoned millions of our fellow citizens to the depravity of a
Yeah.
growing communism in the core cities, and I'm not willing to accept that. And that really underscores my support for Royce White because, he swears when when he's in a public setting, he doesn't swear. He's very affable and likable. If he's in front of 200 people, who's that guy? But people don't understand that when he's podcasting or when you're podcasting, there is an entertainment element to this. And the audience that he's seeking is not a 75-year-old person living in a wealthy suburb with a $3 million house paid for and
Right.
$40 million in their 401k. That's not his audience. And that person's going to vote Republican most might. I mean, that's a whole other thing how those people are voting. But there's nobody really going into the inner city. And what Royce is doing, he's coaching basketball, multiple teams, meeting parents, taking young kids. You're talking about alternative ways to convert or to motivate or to energize low propensity voters, no propensity voters, or long term ancestral leftist voters.
Right.
He's actually, and the party doesn't even recognize what he's doing. They don't recognize that he's building a political constituency using the culture. He's part of that culture. He's criticized for that. But I'm just telling you that outreach, Free People Radio is deeply involved in trying to reach what I think is the low hanging fruit, which is the obvious constituencies that are forming of people who understand that the Democrat promise was a scam. And we're speaking to those people. So that's a big part of what we're trying to do here. And we need help with that to understand what issues. I mean, Royce probably wouldn't say it, but I'm saying myself, because I'm not running for office. I'm an advisor and I'm trying to do the work. What are the unifying issues that we can create new constituencies with? And before you answer that, I also want to say that the precinct strategy, the point of it for me, if we can't win in Minnesota for a certain period of time, what we want to do is change our party so we can elect 3 American nationalist RNC members. Because right now, we sometimes send people to the RNC that are not really down with the quote unquote Trump agenda, which it's not even the Trump agenda, it's republicanism. So, we want to have a party, we want to remove the people that are blocking the build out of the party. And they're blocking it very systematically. So that's why I believe we need a huge influx of people into the party. And that's why I'm urging people to go to caucus. We're still a caucus state here in 2026 and join the party. And I will meet you and I'll help you understand how party politics and party procedure works so that we can organize. Not that we're against anybody. We're for citizen participation. And in this sense, I'm like you. I have a perspective. I know who I am politically. But when I'm working to bring people in the Republican Party of Minnesota, I'm not vetting them out. If you want to come into party politics, come on in, get a vote, get a seat at the table. Let the citizens vote it out. But please don't leave half of the billets empty because then it's not really a political process. It's an insider game. So we're trying to change that party politics, but going back to those unifying issues, you as a pollster could give me so much help to know what I should be focused on.
It's funny because going into, for instance, you have a neighboring state that obviously Michigan, one of your, Great Lakes states, and In Wayne County alone, which I'm listening because I was listening to the story and I was inside chuckling or trying not to chuckle out loud because I've seen this a lot as well, where newcomers to the party or even, I mean, they're not, some of them aren't so new anymore, which is why you'd be surprised there hasn't been so much more progress made in this area. But, you're willing to go in any neighborhood and you're willing to knock on any door. And look at Wayne County, for instance. I mean, had Mike Rogers at the Senate level done as well as the presidential candidate in Wayne County, we may have been looking at another Republican seat in the U.S. Senate. But, he very much ran a very typical established Republican establishment campaign. He did not seek out those votes. Donald Trump did much better with black voters than he did. Mike Rogers did well with some other non-white groups, but he didn't do as well. He ran about 10 points, 7 points with Hispanics, 10 points with black voters. So, that could, in a very close election, that could make the winner the loss. And in the case of Mike Rogers, it did. Meanwhile, if you would have gone to those neighborhoods and knocked on those doors, I think a lot of Republicans who have been part of the party for a while might be surprised to find out that a lot of the issues that motivate the new right, and especially the younger right, are the same issues that motivate people in inner city America and in urban America. And I want to say this before we actually get into specific issues. I wanted to just briefly mention that I have been arguing for whatever you want to call it, bridging the urban rural divide through these issues for years because for years, decades now, it's been American politics and electoral politics been a fight between you have your rural coalitions and you have your urban coalitions. And then they're fighting over the suburbs to see who can win enough, to carry the day. And it leaves the suburb as the most important voting block, basically, because you figure the rurals are going to vote how they're going to vote, the urban voters are going to vote how they're going to vote. So everybody focuses on the suburbs, and there's a couple of problems with that. First and foremost, that the suburbs actually have unique issues, or unique perspective that allows, like, when you're focusing and you're tailoring your message to them, you can leave out large numbers of people in urban and rural America. So it's not healthy for our politics to do this. And then secondly, if we did begin to narrow the gap between urban and rural America, it just makes for a more unifying society, right? We're not going to be so polarized and balkanized. So it's not only good, it's not only a good political strategy, it's good politics in the sense that it will lead to a more stable society. That being all said, um, instead of finding the things that we differ on, or entertaining this system that does separate us, when you go and you knock on those doors in urban Black America, for instance, you're going to find a lot of mothers, and a lot of mothers who are upset that maybe illegal immigration is putting so much burden on the social systems, the social welfare, education, healthcare. It's putting so much burden on them that they're the ones who suffer a great deal because of it. There were a lot of stories in New York City and other urban areas leading up to last year's election where when these people came in and the government didn't know where to put them, they get dumped into the interior, which is unfortunate in and of itself. But a lot of the people who suffered from that were minority school districts who used their schools to house these people. And it was very disrupting to the families in those neighborhoods. You'll find men who wish there was just more economic activity. I mean, we have this very bleak and dark picture that, let's be honest. I mean, this is not a huge deal everywhere, but it is in certain parts of the Republican Party where they have a very, dark view. They don't know other communities very well because they have excluded them from their political process for so long. And they have this very bleak view, and they think, that there, if you go to inner city, all you're going to find are people who want to be on welfare. And, these are just horrible stereotypes that aren't true. And if you are somebody like a Trump benefited because he's got universal name recognition. So his message is his message. But he did lead the way. What did he do? He went into the Lion's Den and he spoke with the Association of Black Journalists. He knew it was going to be an adversarial crowd, but he did it anyway. And he was trying to make a point. I'm not saying you're going to be welcomed with open arms in these communities, but I am saying that you're going to find a lot of kinship with them on these certain issues. And that's why economic nationalism really is the secret. It is between immigration, trade, putting American industry and American jobs first. That is an 80-20 issue everywhere in this country, right? I mean, we have polled the most hardcore liberals, and even they will tell you that, American trade policy, US trade policy should not be designed to benefit the welfare of another nation over American employees.
Well,
So,
let me just interrupt for a second and say,
and you know this from
well,
your
when I was
experience.
just going to
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
as a reformed globalist, when I was a full-throated globalist, the criticism of what I was doing really was led by Chuck Schumer.
Yeah.
It was led
Yep.
by the Democrats.
That's right.
And they were the ones that were all in on globalism. They were just using it. I mean, now that I look back on it, I realize how deeply duplicitous these people are
Very. Yes.
because they're, and there was an alliance between this kind of, what did you call establishment, a traditional Republican
Yeah.
campaign, because empire is about the US dollar, which is about trade. And
That's
so,
right.
you get into my age cohort has never seen an intervention going back to Vietnam that we didn't say, well, that's not true. Vietnam, we were in the streets. We were in the streets. And I was looking at your recent comments about the young cohort of Trump supporters that have completely flipped since the
Yeah.
intervention in Iran, which I want to get to. I want to transition into some really core elements so the audience understands and try to find a way out of this. But we were anti war. That was the coalition that worked at that time. But after that, and I personally, in my own poetic musings, think that the four assassinations in the 60s, which I call the four martyrs, Kennedy, Malcolm X, Martin Luther
Malcolm
King, and
X. Yep.
I think those four assassinations took my age cohort and scared us like sheep. Like
Yeah.
if you have an opinion and you're standing up against power, you're going to die. And then Nixon financialized their economy, and it was glorious to get rich. So everybody, because we were a very idealistic generation when we were when we were at square one, we were hippies. Man, but this was a generation of people that wanted intense change, and we were anti-war. Now, I've always been anti-war, but we were anti-war. And then after Nixon, man, my group, everybody was just trying to make money. Nobody thought about their fellow citizens. It was all
Yeah.
about me, 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 me. Very self-serving group, my cohort. And we've never seen an intervention we didn't want to get involved in. So now we roll into this Israel thing, and I'm just going to talk about Minnesota. We've got traditional uh, Republicans, establishment Republican, empire supporting Republicans that see America as the hegemon, that are bought into the idea of America as the world's policeman, and that our version of political economy is the end of history, for lack of a better way of saying it. We've got Christians United for Israel, evangelicals in this state, deeply committed to Israel, deeply. So that's a coalition because that establishment Republican base, there's now a profile of a national candidate that they're looking for. In fact, I've heard it called the SEAL brand, where they're really looking,
Yeah.
and the Democrats are looking for the same thing, ex-military, that are going to promote a certain kind of Americana, and they're allied with evangelicals. I mean, that is really not, this is the fight in the Republican Party here in Minnesota and probably in every state in the nation. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, and they're trying to find one for Senator Tom Tillis's seat in North Carolina. He'll be not seeking reelection, and there are some good people who could step up and do that, and they're looking for that type as well. One of them is a Green Beret.